This video is about week 15 of recovery from a midfoot fusion and bone graft for a Lisfranc injury. My surgery was on my right foot and I was working on a lot of things that week. I was working up to walking inside full-time without the walking boot, and I was starting to leave the house without the walking boot once I could walk inside the house full-time without it. This happened about halfway through the week. I noticed when I was walking outside with the walking boot, it started feeling very painful in the arch of my foot when I was using it, and so that just felt like a sign to me that my foot was ready to just be out of it. I was working on strengthening exercises in physical therapy and at home as well as at the gym. I was walking as much as my foot could tolerate at home, which was a bit of a struggle because my foot would get painful easily, but I was working on walking a little bit at a time. I was working on walking up the stairs with both feet alternating. I could not go down the stairs with both feet alternating yet. Walking without the walking boot was taking some time to get used to. I had to slightly adjust my center of gravity since I had gotten used to the walking boot making my right leg a little taller than the left leg. Now I had to get used to both legs being the same height again. Tuesday, November 5th, 2024, day 98 after my surgery. I was able to get around the house all day without the walking boot. This was the first day I had gone around the house all day without it. I took my crutches for voting in case there was a line, but there was not a line at our polling place. We were able to get in and out pretty quickly, so voting with my recovering foot went pretty smoothly. I did wear my walking boot, and Matt and I went grocery shopping afterwards. I was able to walk around the grocery store in the walking boot without crutches for the first time. My foot sure hurt towards the end of our shopping trip, but I was super proud of my progress. That evening, Matt and I walked down to our local pizza place to pick up a small pizza. The pizza place is only about a 5-minute walk away from our house, and I was able to sit down there for a few minutes to rest my foot before we went back home. I didn't take my crutches for the walk, and my foot was honestly starting to feel not placed correctly in the walking boot anymore. I also noticed that day that using the walking boot was making the arch of my foot very painful. Up until that point, my foot would get uncomfortable when I had the walking boot on for extended periods of time, so I would take it off when I was sitting down. But I could not imagine what walking without it would be like. However, that day, walking with the walking boot on just did not feel right anymore. My foot felt off balance in the walking boot, like my weight was not being distributed across my foot properly anymore. It seemed like a good sign, like my foot was ready to transition out of the walking boot full time. I was emotionally nervous of jumping to being out of the boot full time, but I was excited at the same time to be working towards better functionality and getting my life back because this had been a long road since my injury a little over 6 years ago. My foot was pretty painful and sore towards the evening that day. It was hard not to limp, and I had to focus on walking because I didn't want to let myself get used to limping since there was nothing structurally wrong with my foot anymore since the surgery had fixed my injury. Wednesday, November 6th, 2024, day 99 after my surgery. I had physical therapy that day and it was getting harder. What I struggled with the most was some of the balancing exercises like standing toe raises, doing 3 sets of balancing on my right leg for 30 seconds at a time, doing 10 seconds of stepping forward and balancing on my right foot for 5 seconds, stepping sideways and balancing on my right foot for 5 seconds, doing that 10 times. Those were just all very difficult for me. My balance had never been great to begin with even before the surgery. I could feel myself improving, but it was a pretty painful and tiring process. My foot would get pretty puffy afterwards. That day, I needed crutches when I left my physical therapy session. My foot hurt for the rest of the day, but it felt really good to be making progress. Matt had commented several times that whenever I had a physical therapy session, he typically would see me make some type of improvement at home within a day of my going, and I agreed with that assessment. That day, I was making a conscious effort to work on getting more comfortable with walking up the stairs with alternating feet. I still couldn't walk down the stairs with alternating feet because of the way the toes, midfoot, and ankle have to move together to walk down the stairs, but going up the stairs was something that I was getting better at. Thursday, November 7th, 2024, day 100 after my surgery. My foot was hurting a lot that day, probably from the physical therapy session the day before. I was still able to practice walking without the walking boot around the house and practice walking more comfortably up and down the stairs, but I was moving a bit more slowly and more painfully. I was getting better at moving more confidently up the stairs with alternating feet. Matt and I went grocery shopping together and I wore sneakers, no walking boot. I had to use gauze pads over the scar on top of my foot to give it some cushioning or else the sneaker really hurt against the scar. It did feel uncomfortable, but the gauze padding did help. I took my crutches with me because I wasn't sure how walking in public without the walking boot was going to go, but it was easier than I thought it would be. My foot was definitely sore afterwards though. We went to the gym also with no walking boot. This was the first time I went to the gym without the walking boot since the surgery, and it was so much easier working out without it on. My foot did get a bit painful, but it felt so great not having the cumbersome walking boot on while I was at the gym. Friday, November 8th, 2024, day 101 after my surgery. My foot and ankle were continuing to hurt pretty consistently. It was a bit frustrating to have to still be dealing with consistent pain over 3 months after the foot surgery, but from what I'd heard, it seems pretty typical to still be in pain a few months after the surgery, so I wasn't too worried. I did my standing toe raises at home, which were painful, but I was able to get through the exercise. I was trying to work on building up the calf muscle on my right leg because it was currently still pretty weak. The physical therapist wanted me to eventually be able to do the standing toe raises on one leg, but at the time I wasn't able to because I had lost too much muscle on that leg. Matt and I went out to eat, and for the first time since the surgery, I left the house with no walking boot, 2 sneakers, and no crutches. My foot didn't feel great at all, and I was having trouble getting my foot, ankle, and calf muscles to work together to walk smoothly outside. I felt like I was walking slowly, and it was painful, but I did it, and it felt like a massive success. Saturday, November 9th, 2024, day 102 after the surgery. My foot was really hurting to walk on that day, not just sore or hurting a little bit, but very painful in the foot and ankle. It was stabbing, sharp, stinging, and throbbing on and off. I wore slippers inside the house, which pressed on the scar, but helped a little bit with the pain. Matt and I went out to eat with a few of his friends. I tried wearing a pair of boots instead of sneakers to see if they would be any more comfortable, because I'd been having trouble getting the sneakers to be loose enough to sit comfortably on top of my foot where the surgical scar is. The boots did not work out so great, and I needed to use my crutches because my foot hurt so much. Thankfully, we had taken my crutches with us just in case I needed them, since I was testing out different shoes. My foot felt like it just kept getting puffier and puffier within the boot, and I kept getting a sharp pain during the first hour. It did get better after the first hour, but it was not a great time. I knew I had made a ton of progress and that I had not been out of the walking boot for long at all, but it was more painful and frustrating than I had thought it would be to transition out of the walking boot. I had not thought it was going to be such a painful process, and I could feel my mental health suffering. I was anxious about not doing enough or doing something wrong. Also, not being very physically active for such an extended period of time had me feeling antsy and on edge, and I missed not being able to work out at the gym or take walks the way I used to. I missed being able to drive and hated being so dependent on others to get to physical therapy, the gym, and everywhere else, even though I knew Matt and the rest of my family were happy to be helping me. I knew it wasn't going to be much longer until I was in a place where I could start driving, but this was a particularly mentally draining evening for me because of how long it had been and how difficult the recovery process had been so far. Thankfully for me, I have an amazing family and friends who have been sticking by me for the entire process. Sunday, November 10th, 2024, day 103 after my surgery. Matt and I met my family at a local Indian restaurant, and Sophie commented that if they didn't know any better, it would be impossible to tell that I had had such major surgery not so long ago just looking at me, since I didn't have my walking boot or crutches anymore, and I was walking normally other than just a bit slower than usual. Matt and I went to the gym that evening. I did several of the weight machines, and I did not have my walking boot on or the crutches with me. My foot felt super sore and a little painful at the end of the workout, but I was working back towards what was a normal routine for me, which felt really great. Monday, November 11th, 2024, day 104 after my surgery. I had physical therapy and my foot was pretty painful afterwards. Some of the exercises were really difficult. The ones that involved balancing on my right foot and the standing toe raises continued to be the most difficult ones. I was still doing the standing toe raises on both legs at the same time, as my calf muscles in the right leg were not strong enough to do it on just that leg. It felt to me like I was limping, but my mom and Matt both said that it didn't look like I was. When I walked, though, it didn't feel as if my right foot was fully bending as much as the left one did when I would take a step, and I wondered if it ever would fully bend because of the fusion being in that midfoot area. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining me on this adventure as I recover from my surgery. I hope that these videos are helping any of you who may also be recovering from injuries or surgeries, or that they may also help ease any anxieties or concerns that those of you who are looking forward to any type of major surgeries. Feel free to leave in the comments any questions that you have, or maybe any struggles, challenges, or successes that you have been having going on as you recover from your own injuries and surgeries. Also, feel free to leave any comments just to say hi. I look forward to seeing you all again soon and to hearing from all of you. See you all later.